Welcome to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast designed for small business owners, the backbone of the American economy. Join us as our hosts Austin and Landon share insights and experiences as small business owners, active investors and operators who have started, bought, sold, and grown several successful businesses. Tycoons is powered by Backbone Planning Partners, a business consulting and wealth management firm built specifically to serve small and medium-sized businesses.
Hello, Tycoons, and welcome to today's episode of Tycoons of Small Biz. I'm your host here, as always, Austin Peterson, coming to you from the Phoenix, Arizona area, where the weather has officially turned. We're getting to the point where it officially sucks to live in Arizona. It will be almost 100 degrees today. It's scheduled to be 96. It was 99 yesterday, so it is time to get out of town as often as you can. But I'm joined by Landon Mance, who happens to be about 10 degrees behind me in pretty much everything, let's be honest, but definitely in weather. Landon, welcome, buddy. How are you?
Yeah, good morning. Doing great, man. Doing great. Had the twins' birthday party, their fourth party on Saturday, and got my face painted like a robot. I should have taken some pictures. Actually, I did take a picture, so I'll have to share that on LinkedIn. But yeah, man, it's been absolutely perfect out here the last week. 80, 85 degrees, slight breeze, just beautiful.
Awesome. Well, we got a special guest on the program today. We've got we got Chris White. Chris, actually, I don't know what area of the world you're coming in from, so you'll have to tell us. But you work with Landon, do some coaching with his other business, and welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Austin. Well, I am similarly in the same temperature. I'm in Florida, so we are turning as well, and it's now steadily in the mid to upper 80s. But the humidity hasn't come yet. So, I have a little bit of time left before it gets miserable. I am a serial entrepreneur, third generation in my family. I primarily play in the SaaS area. I'm a former expert EOS implementer, one of the originals with Gino Wickman, the author of Traction. And I am the co-founder of System and Soul and the Micro Business Academy, and a new venture that I'm starting called Profit Pro.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to unpack this conversation with you, talk a little bit about an important topic. We're going to talk about team health today. So if you're tuning in and you understand the importance or want to understand the importance of team health, we're excited to jump in. So I'll go first. I ran 2 miles. I biked 6 miles. I did 84 burpees and 140 crunches this morning. So I'm doing my part for team health. That's what we're talking about, right? No, of course not. That's not what we're talking about today. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of having a healthy team and what that does to drive business forward. So Landon, why don't you kick us off, talk a little bit about, introduce the topic, what it really means, and then, we'll have Chris pipe in and just kind of unpack this topic a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Chris, man, really appreciate you joining us. I think if there's anybody that knows a thing or two about team health, it's Chris. I don't know the exact number, but I know that I believe you've coached a couple hundred businesses over your career.
Yeah. Over close to 200 businesses and hundreds of executives.
Yeah. So I think Chris knows a thing or two about team health, and I think my experience when it comes to team health is definitely, in the process of learning more. Yep. I think I've learned a ton about team health probably the last 3 or 4 years. But really the last couple years, I think it's accelerated quite a bit when, after I bought Nevada Tree Service last year, and we've got a small team of about 8 over there. And then we've got, a couple of team members and backbone planning partners as well. But, when I think about team health, it's not just about, building a strong team kind of in the boardroom. It's also about forging personal relationships and connecting with other people, on different levels. Maybe it's, physical level, you like to go out and play golf. You like to, rock climb with them. You like to do something. Maybe it's spiritual, you go to the same church, you share similar beliefs. Maybe it's some other connection, but I think that's one of the biggest challenges in team health is facilitating those dialogues and those conversations to allow people to make those connections.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because it requires vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work if we're not open and honest with one another. I spent a lot of time, coaching executive teams, and I'm a voracious reader, and you can probably tell that by that is my background, by the way. It's not fake. Those are all my books, but. I have some favorite authors, and Patrick Lencioni wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, right? And he's got a wonderful program where he goes through his pyramid, and I won't take you through the whole pyramid, but the bottom of the pyramid, where everything starts for team health, is trust. And in order to have trust, we have to be willing to be vulnerable in front of one another, right? And that's not easy for men, especially. My hand gestures apparently are causing some Zoom thumb to come up. But
wait till he throws up a peace sign. Show us that one.
Oh my God. I don't know. I have no idea what the setting is when I do this, but like all of a sudden I just give 2 thumbs up and you get fireworks. So I should learn how to appropriately use those effects, right?
You should.
But Lencioni wrote a great book. He's got a great program. And again, coming back to the foundation of team health, and it starts with trust. And I made the comment that it's harder for men, right, to be vulnerable with one another. But the beauty of it is when we can you kind of get naked, right? Where, to your point, Landon, we're sharing something personal, something outside of work, maybe something, that's people aren't necessarily aware of. When I think about team health, I think in 3s, right? Gary V, jab, jab, right cross, talks about that. So for me, I think about it in 3s, right? You can have direct, candid feedback. You can talk about trust and vulnerability, right? In team health. And then you need to talk about team alignment. So those are kind of the 3 areas as I break it down. And one of the best books I think I've ever read when it comes to giving, direct, candid feedback is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Fabulous book, opened my eyes up to a real simple way to sort of quantify behaviors into these 4 categories. Brene Brown talks about trust. She talks about vulnerability. She talks about her book Grit. She's a great resource on trust and vulnerability and team alignment. And that's where we kind of bring Lencioni back in, that he's all about building that trust so we can get everybody on the same page, in alignment and rowing, in that same direction. So, those are kind of the 3 authors right now that I lean on. And of course, there's all kinds of fun exercises. Austin, I'm sure you have some blind spots, right?
No.
See, he did his crunches, he did his swimming, he's ready to ball, right? We all have blind spots, right? And in our professional lives and our personal lives. Well, if we think about team health and we come into the our conference room, man, I want you to tell me what my blind spots are. But the thing is, we're afraid to. We're not sure. We're not comfortable calling it out. And what all that leads to is why. Why are we behaving this way? And that's where you got to kind of dig down and start working on building trust. And again, I'll anchor it to what you were saying, Landon. One of the best ways I've seen is when an executive or anybody can share something so personal, they're afraid to share it for whatever reason. But once they share it, they get this freedom, this sense of freedom, this relief. But then there's a sense of nervousness because how are the people going to receive what I just said? Right? So you have to wait for it. It's that awkward silence because you don't know how people are going to react. But the doesn't matter when you think about it, how they react. The fact that you were able to step over that line and share something vulnerable, that's the first step in building trust, vulnerability-based trust, and getting alignment.
Yeah, I would, Chris, I agree with everything that you said, and the three authors are amazing. I mean, you can turn to them for a lot of different things, obviously, in building your business. But so Landon and I have been business partners. We've been working informally together for about 5 or 6 years, and then kind of slowly kind of got married and are truly acting as a couple now, so to speak, in terms of our business. But and it took us a while to kind of figure out each other's thought processes and the way that we react to things and the way that we handle different things. But I would say that Landon and I think Landon probably agrees that we do a pretty good job. And I think that there's sometimes when we wait too long to bring certain things up, but we've also been pretty vulnerable with each other. We've had some conversations that most business partners would not have with one another.
Yes.
And I do think that actually brings us closer together as a partnership. It makes sure that we're rowing in the right direction. We do check-ins. I think that that's an important thing, right? Like we had one yesterday where Landon kind of brought up a topic and said, I've been kind of thinking about this, feeling, this. I'm not sure if you're feeling this. We've had this conversation in the past where you've mentioned some things that kind of made me think that you might still be feeling that way. And I just want to throw out that I'm willing to, to concede a little bit or to give up a little bit on my side based on what I know you're doing for our team right now, so to speak. Like those types of conversations, they don't happen in most partnerships or most teams. And it's partially why you have so many issues with partnerships breaking up.
You're 100% right. And I like the way that you framed it on the front end, because there's a courtship period where you get to know one another and foundationally it probably built on principles or values. And then as you go through the courtship and you get closer and closer, it does become a marriage. And I'm not a marriage counselor, but I know one of the foundational pillars to a long marriage is communication. And it's the same thing in business with partners. I tell my clients over communicate, if anything, because the opposite is just chipping away at your culture and it's going to pull you apart eventually. So having a standing, 15-minute connection point every week or whatever that cadence is, you're 100% right. Most partners don't do that. Why? Because they're wearing all these hats, they're running around and they're trying to make money. And unfortunately, that part of the relationship, oh, he's okay. I talked to Austin last week. He's okay. I'll see him next week. You start to get these little gaps in the communication and they just get bigger and bigger. So it sounds like you guys, that what you described to me is like music to my ears as a coach. That's healthy communication, the way you described it.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Len.
No, I was going to say, Chris, for the people that might be listening to this live, but most likely listening to the recording, and they're thinking like, well, yeah, this all sounds really great, like we all can recollect a time where we were going through something tough, right? And maybe it was a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a friend, a neighbor, like whoever. We can all recollect a time where we were going through a down period, and that one person, stepped up to us and said, hey, like, I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. What's going on? Can I help? Or, showed up to help you move, or, whatever. We all can think back to those times, but when it comes to business, it's like we put this wall up, right? We don't want to be like that vulnerable person that is sharing experiences or letting people know like something that's going on in our lives that's really challenging, for whatever reason. But for the people that are listening to this going, well, gosh, like I know the value in that to build trust and to build a better team, but I don't know where the heck to start. Like, what do you tell those people as like a first step?
Yeah, that's a great question. If hopefully the company has a weekly meeting, and what you can do in that weekly meeting is you can bring your core values in and do core value shout outs, right? You can call out the positive behavior of one of your peers, and that reinforces the foundational principles of your culture. And it gives you an opportunity to demonstrate, hey, kudos to you. I observed what you did. You handled that client beautifully, in alignment, and I want to recognize you for that. Core value shout outs are great. I recommend them weekly. I recommend them in town halls. Anytime, we don't do, but here's an example. So I had a client who, the culture wasn't what he wanted it to be. And he didn't feel that there was a lot of unity or team health, not just at the SLT level, senior leadership team, but kind of cascading down through the company. And so I looked at him and I said, well, you're the owner founder. What are you doing about it? And he goes, well, what do you mean? And I go, well, you're the owner founder. Like, all eyes are on you. As you go, so go they. And so what I brought to his attention was, I said, you come into your office every morning, you park in this special parking lot that's got your name on it, and it's the closest spot to the door. You go in the front door and you immediately go into your office and you go to work. He goes, yeah, I do it every day. I said, okay, how about this? From now on, for the next quarter, the next 90 days, I want you to park in back of the building. I want you to come through the back door, and I want you to just say hi to people as you come in, and then go to your office. And he just looked at me like his eyes were this big. I'm like, yeah, you have to have human connection. You want your culture this, you want it to be that. I go, when I asked you what you were doing about it, hey, you come into work, you go into your office, you go to work. That's great. We need that visionary part of you to be having these big relationships outside of the office and having these meetings. But what about your people?
Yeah.
Right?
Or better yet, turn that parking spot into the core value leader of the month and let
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now I will tell you that this owner, the parking spot doesn't exist anymore. Now, they didn't do that. They just opened it up. But he now parks every day back of the building, walks through, and says hello to everybody he sees. Sometimes he'll even stop and have a conversation now, which never happened. These are small, little, incremental changes, guys. It's like when you say, how do you get started, Landon? It's human connection. But the big AI is huge right now, right? AI is change. AI is the revolution since the internet or whatever. It's amazing stuff. I don't know what's going to happen to humanity. It's very interesting. But I know one thing: it will not replace human connection. And when we talk about team health, when we talk about trust and vulnerability and alignment, that comes through human interaction, human connection. And that's the hardest part because and again, not to pick on men, but especially men. Oh, I can't be vulnerable. I was raised to be big, strong, and tough, and I can't show weakness or any emotion or have a tear or anything. Those days are gone, man. Well, they're not gone, but they're moving in a different direction. I think there's more understanding, to your point, Landon. I think since COVID, there has been a huge disruption in brick and mortar, and now people who used to be together are now spread out, working from home, and there's an impact on team health there and culture. How do you foster that? And the thing is, we figure it out. And now I think, to your point, now more than ever, business owners, big and small, are recognizing that everybody says, oh, people are our number one asset. Okay, well, what do you do for them? You got to take care of them. Kim Scott says you fundamentally have to care about your people. And you have to demonstrate that. And I think the best way to do that is through human connection and being purposeful and meaningful and disciplined to do team health exercises, kind of like the blind spot that I was talking with Austin, right? You can do a start-stop exercise, right? Tell Austin, share with Landon one thing you'd love him to start doing in his role. And then there's one thing I really think you should stop doing. And then have a conversation around the stop. Give us that's a real simple exercise. And you will have to demonstrate vulnerability based on the question, right? But it's a start-stop exercise, real simple. That thing that you want me to stop, maybe I didn't realize the impact was negative until you told me. And I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't realize that. I absolutely will stop doing that. One thing I really like is when leaders share how they became the leader they are today. What shaped you? Like, what books did you read, or what classes or training did you attend? I really like to hear personal stories. Again, human connection. It all comes back to human connection. So I feel like I'm probably going long in the tooth here, but it's such a good topic. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah, I love where you went with that, because I kind of asked, like, what's like a first step, and in my head I'm thinking like, I was kind of thinking like what's something that you could start doing in a meeting, but I feel like you took a one step back from there, and basically you said, like, you can't really do that until the trust is there, right? Because if you're not engaged in a high trust relationship with somebody, you're not going to be vulnerable, period, right? Because you don't trust that relationship enough to know that if you share something really vulnerable, that you're going to get a reaction that makes you feel, whatever, comfortable, okay, heard, felt, whatever, emotions that we're looking for when we share something like that. So I love that you kind of took it to a place of like, well, the trust has to be there first before you actually start to have those conversations. And then I also want to just mention that, this very much is a plug for Chris and for the people that do the work that Chris does. Like, in the early stages of trying to build those relationships, if you don't really know where to start, like, I can tell you where to start, and that is to have somebody that can facilitate those conversations, right?
Yeah.
They know how to bring people together to make sure that those conversations are productive, right? Because they know the right questions to ask at the right time, under the right circumstances. They know to make sure that the trust is there before those conversations, actually take place. Austin and I do some facilitation work for a very small handful of clients. We do it for, I think, 3 different clients right now. That's it. Because we don't have capacity to do it at scale. But we have this one team that we've been doing facilitation work for since November or December, and I don't think we're all that good at it yet. But we had our first quarterly check-in with this team. They're a leadership team of 4. It's about a $10 million a year business. There's a big people element, but it's also kind of got this, software as a service element to it as well. And we facilitated, a couple pretty good conversations, and we had our first quarterly check-in with them. And I mean, just some of the feedback that we got was, they've been together for 16 years. And they're like, we have had more productive conversations in the last 90 days than we have had in 16 years. And it's not because we're doing anything that special. It's just, we are just facilitating conversations that they've never had before.
Well, you're not just, I mean, you guys are seasoned veterans, your partners, you have your experiences that you draw from your past and your current and your businesses, right? So you're bringing value to that team. So you're not, nobody's just the just, as they say, right? But what you're doing is, the reason it works is because that neutral party brings a sense of, okay, this is a professional. They know how to facilitate. I'm going to have to extend a little blind trust to this facilitator because I've never done this before, but they're the professional. And so it doesn't necessarily relieve all the anxiety, but I think it lowers it. And they feel comfortable in the facilitator. Like, you come in, here's our quarterly agenda, and we're going to work through, and they've already looked at it, right? They've prepped for it. But they've been together that long. But that's a testament to the work that you guys are doing. That's breakthrough. However incremental it is, it's breakthrough. And that's like pushing the cheese, man. Listen, we win in small little incremental decisions, right, and stuff like that. It's a game of inches. I think we're just trying to gain more ground, and I'll take whatever little we can get when it comes to having a breakthrough with a team. I mean, guys, I got all kinds of stories, as you can imagine, but I was facilitating a leadership team one time, and one of the executives had shared that her daughter graduated high school, and another executive said, "You have a daughter?" And I was just like, are you kidding me? You guys have been together how long? Like, they were all professional, zero personal. And I thought, what a shame, right? Where's the human connection there? Listen, there's more than business, right? Yeah, okay, we're in business, we're capitalists, we want to make a profit, we want to provide jobs, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it can't just be about money. It just can't. I mean, it's just so I like to look at it, people are half of the equation, right? Your brain and your heart, and your brain and your heart have to be in synchronization. And so those are the two parts of the business. The brain represents the system. The soul represents the people in leadership, and those come together to create one, right? A unified business that understands their core values, which are the guiding principles and how we act, and that's how we get started. These are our values. These are what we demonstrate internally to one another and externally forward facing to our clients. And the thing is, it just takes time, and it's a commitment, right? Again, it's just a game of inches. So a lot of times I'll have executives be like, oh, we can skip the team health this quarter. And I'm like, yeah, we could, but is that the right thing to do? And I put it back on them, because it's their company, it's your team, and you will decide the level of commitment to building team health and alignment. And when I say that to them, they're like, I know, I'm just nervous about it. I'm like, it's okay. Everyone's going to be safe. We don't go to a 10, maybe a 7, but we never go to a 10 in the session, right?
Yeah. No, I'm with you, Chris. And I feel like we could talk about this all day long. We are kind of coming up against time. So I'll just kind of give some final thoughts. And then if either of you guys have some final thoughts, you're welcome to weigh in. But a couple of things that kind of stick out to me is, Landon mentioned that we do some of this facilitation, but Landon and his partner in their other business hired you, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the importance of having an outside facilitator, even if you do facilitation work yourself. So that kind of should tell the audience how important this work is and why we believe in it. And second, I think that there's a couple of things that we do in our meeting, and I've picked up a couple of other things that we can probably add to our team meetings. But, we start with a vulnerability exercise, you could call it. It's essentially, we just say every team member shares a personal highlight, a professional highlight, and then one word to describe how you're feeling right now.
That's
right?
Great.
I mean, it's simple, it's quick, it's easy, but it's something that kind of is helping bring us closer together. Are we perfect at it? No. And we've even got a brand new team member, lost a long time team member. And so we're kind of trying to rebuild this all over again, but we believe in it. It's super important. And then the last thing I want to mention is I recently listened to some video clips from Marcus Buckingham, where he was talking about the importance of love, right? And it's not all about money. It's about love, which people don't want to use that word in a business setting.
That's right.
But it really is. And I know we could be better at this, right? I mean, one of our team members is listening to this, producing this podcast episode, and I'm sure she would tell us that we could be better at this, but it's important to us that our team members feel our love, our appreciation for what they do to help our business move forward. But we really care about them as a person and helping them to become who they really want to be, which is why, our longtime team member that left, we celebrated that and wished her well. It was tough for us to see her go. We wanted her to be with us forever, but she was not passionate about what we do and was passionate about what she's going to go do now. So we celebrate that because we truly love her as a person.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because you're right. It's hardly ever talked about. And that's another area of vulnerability, right? Can you actually talk about that? Because that is foundational, right? It should be that. We should love one another, care about one another, personally and professionally. So I love your check-in. Very, very intentional check-in. I like that. And the one word, I've been doing that for so many years. It sets the emotional temperature for the rest of the meeting. Now I know where your head's at. Now I know how your emotional temperature is, and I can adjust to that because I love you, right? I might have something tough to tell you, but it's coming from here. And the last thing I'll say is, good for you guys for celebrating the departure, because that's a success. Mm-hmm. Right? If they're not passionate about what you're doing, that's okay. let's help you find your passion. And if it's not here, we're okay with that too, because we love you and we want you to succeed. So that's a real abundance mindset, right? Because like you said, we want them to stay forever, but we understand that that's not probable.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Good for you
Chris,
guys.
really appreciate your thoughts, Chris, and everything that you've provided today. Landon, any final thoughts?
Honestly, man, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to mention that as a closing thought, just that exercise of, when you start a meeting, ask your team, personal highlight, professional highlight, and one word to describe how you're feeling. And that's a great way to start to build that foundation of trust to kind of, move to the next level. So other than that, I'm good. Appreciate anybody that's listening. Chris, you are the man, a living legend. Chris White, thanks for joining us, brother. Much appreciated.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast for small business owners by small business owners. Be sure to follow us on our social media channels for links to all our episodes and great content around growing, investing in, buying, and selling small businesses. This podcast is distributed for informational purposes only. Statements made in the podcast are not to be construed as personalized investment or financial planning advice, may not be suitable for everyone, and should not be considered as solicitation to engage in any particular investing or planning strategy. Listeners should conduct their own review and exercise judgment, or consult with their professional financial advisor to see how the information contained in this podcast may apply to their own individual circumstances. All investing involves risk of loss, including the possible loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and nothing in this podcast should be construed as a guarantee of any specific outcome or profit. All market indices discussed are unmanaged, do not incur management fees, costs, and expenses, and cannot be invested into directly. Investment advisory services offered by Backbone Planning Partners, LLC. Neither Backbone Planning Partners, LLC, nor its representatives provide legal or accounting advice. The content of this podcast represents the views and opinions of Austin Peterson and Landon Mance, and/or the podcast guest, and do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Backbone Planning Partners, LLC. Statements made in this podcast are subject to change without notice. Neither Backbone Planning Partners, LLC, nor its representatives, the podcast host, or its guests have an obligation to provide revised statements in the event of changed circumstances.